tips to be as successful as possible in this new experience. We want to make sure that folks have the ability to make the most of this new and frankly very disruptive way of learning that's sort of taken over the course of the last few weeks in the state of New Hampshire, and to ensure that we get the best outcomes possible for the children across the state. Obviously, the COVID virus has changed a lot of the way we live our lives. And education is certainly first and foremost, not just for the students, but also for all the families that are working through this right now. And we're thrilled to be able to engage them and give them some tools, tips, and tricks along the way that they might use to be as successful as possible. And that's particularly true for a lot of the families for whom this is a completely different experience. We want to take a number of people from a whole host of different walks of life and give them the tools to be as successful as they can be. Tonight, our panel, we've got a fantastic panel. It's going to be moderated by a couple folks who are going to, I think, great job. First and foremost, we have Christopher Maidment. Christopher is the reigning AFP Activist of the Year, the 2019 Activist of the Year. He's also been very invested in education. He's one of the founders of the Status for Education Reform. He also has 2 children in Peterborough. Sarah Scott is our Deputy Director of Grassroots Organizing here in New Hampshire. And she is the one who's personally responsible for handling K-12 initiatives across the state, and to ensure that we're able to advance a number of those issues in order to improve the opportunities that children across the state have to have the best education possible. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Chris and to Sarah, and let me take it away. Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks, Greg. We'll get started here I want to go around and have everybody introduce themselves briefly. And if you could touch on what a typical day is looking like for you now since the remote learning has taken place. And I'll just go in order by my screen over here. Anne?
Hi, I'm Anne Gilmet, and my daughter Hannah Gilmet started I've Got Your Back. I'm her outreach coordinator for New Hampshire. She's a 10th grader at Bedford High School. And our typical day, her dad and I are running our business. We have an essential business. We have to leave the house every day. And she's on her own at 16. And I'm very thankful for all of the executive functioning skills she has learned through the years, because since 5th grade, she has typically managed herself. And she not only is doing that, but it's like having a chief cook and bottle washer at home now as well, because she's not working at her after school job. I've been really pleased with our school district and the connections that they have given to our children. I couldn't say more about it because I'm so pleased. And with that, later on, I have a lot of input, I guess, as to the pros and cons of it from my daughter's opinion and many friends. So I'll move it right along.
Great, thank you. And how about Meg? You want to go next, please?
Hi, everybody. I'm Meg Donahue. I live in Warner. I work at Bishop Brady High School. Pardon me. I'm the director of enrollment, and I am a mother of many. I'm a former homeschool mom. I have 2 kids left at home, both in high school. And they are pretty much independent learners. So I can't complain about the impact that this has had on me. They're actually working lots of hours because of siblings that are essential. So they've got a lot of, as you said, Anne, a lot of executive function skills, and they're doing okay. But it's definitely a learning curve for all of us, being stuck at home and all of that isolation that goes along with it.
Great, thank you. Matthew, you might have a little bit of a different perspective. You're a teacher, is that right?
That's right. Thanks for having me. My name is Matthew Longo. I'm a teacher in Manchester, New Hampshire. I teach at a high school in Manchester, and so I'm on the front lines trying to maintain as much of a normal classroom as possible, which has many challenges given the circumstances. But each day you're trying to tweak things and learn from the previous day. But for the most part, it's been fairly smooth transition. I've been fortunate to work with a lot of students who are pretty responsible and are checking in, which can't be said at every school, unfortunately. But so, our school schedule had to change, to accommodate just the reality of learning from home. So it's actually a slower paced schedule, which is kind of nice. We only have 4 classes a day as opposed to 8 on a typical day. So that's been an adjustment, but so far so good. And we kind of just wait and see what the governor says this week.
Great, thank you. And Christina, you're also an educator, is that right?
Yeah, hi, I'm a homeschool mom of 3, and I have one who attends a charter school in Manchester and receives special services. And I also teach homeschool enrichment classes to a couple of different co-ops that I help run. Our typical day has definitely changed. Like Sarah said earlier, homeschoolers really don't stay at home a lot. A lot of our educating is done out in the field and out in the real world and really interacting. The biggest impact it's had on us is schedule. We have more of a structured schedule, mainly because my youngest does receive services. So we have to be very particular about who's on calls when. And social, we're just, our kids are missing their friends. Even with all the Zoom and online, it's that body to body, person to person things that they're missing. And we have not done a lot of online learning in our environment. So it's even for homeschoolers, this is new for us as well.
Yeah, and I know, Kate, no introduction I could give you would suffice, but why don't you go ahead next?
So I'm Kate Baker, the Executive Director of Children's Scholarship Fund New Hampshire, and I've had a beautiful view of this transition to remote learning, having the opportunity to work with hundreds of kids at about 62 schools and more than 100 homeschoolers all over the state. And so I'm happy to field questions about what I've been seeing statewide. In my own house here, I've been working more than ever. And so that's been kind of interesting. My days have just gotten longer and my phone is ringing more and more. Some of our scholarship families are having challenges now where they are economically challenged and unable to pay tuition. And so we're raising money for that. And I've been busier than ever. I do have a high schooler here that transitioned to remote learning very quickly. The school that she attends was exemplary in how they transitioned. It actually blew my doors off how great the school transitioned to remote learning. And I actually also have a UNH student now who's doing the Paul School of Business upstairs at my house. So it's been an adventure, that's for sure.
All right, awesome. And Terry, how about you?
Hello, I'm Terry Wolf. I'm Community Engagement Coordinator. I work directly for a superintendent in a school district, and I totally agree with Kate. I'm busier than ever trying to figure out what this transition is going to be like between staff and families. I'll talk about it at some point, but we did a survey asking for feedback on remote learning after we'd done it for 2 weeks, and we had 1,400 responses. We were really, really pleased with the results, but it was a great insight into what's happening in people's lives. And then in my house, very similar to Kate, I have a freshman in high school who is holed up in the basement way, way too much doing online learning. And when he's done, he doesn't want to come out. I used to say that he would play on video games until the internet ran out, and he still would do that. And then I have a college freshman, out-of-state college freshman at home, also transitioned into remote learning. And her school is not, it's a struggle for them a little bit. So it's interesting.
Great, thank you. Well, let's launch right into the questions if nobody minds. I'll go to Christina first for this one. You touched on it a little bit, having homeschool students that, most of homeschooling isn't done at home. Can you expand on what else has been a struggle for you and what's been going well in the new environment?
I guess the largest struggle for us is that, we really aren't out in the world learning things hands-on from people who actually do whatever the thing is that we're learning. If we want to learn about baking or business, we go to the business, we talk to those people, and we, really learn the essence of what's going on. So really learning that firsthand knowledge is really missing. The things that have worked really well for us, it's going really well. And we're getting caught up on a lot of things. But for us, education isn't about bookwork, and it's not about, can you figure out, a multiple choice question. It's more of educating the person to actually think and learn how to educate themselves. So we're having a lot more discussions and a lot more conversations about different things and delving into a little bit more than what we were in the past.
Very good, very good. On the flip side of that, Matthew, you're a professional educator. Can you touch on the struggles from your perspective in connecting with your students?
Well, yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges for me has been missing the nonverbal clues that you pick up from students in the classroom. So much of my kind of assessment in the classroom is based on eye contact and looking at their body language, looking at whether they're fidgeting or whether they're focused. It's really almost impossible to make eye contact using Zoom, even though I'm using it right now. Because when you look at Zoom, like to make eye contact, you can't actually make real eye contact because of the way the camera's set up. So that sounds kind of simple, but you actually miss out on a lot of valuable information by missing that. It's been kind of a little awkward just trying to maintain that kind of natural rapport with students. And then beyond that, there are the challenges of keeping students engaged and actually making sure they're engaged, because as you know, with Zoom, you don't have to turn the video on, which just opens up a Pandora's box of other possibilities for teenagers. So there's that challenge, but there's some things I try to do to make sure they're staying on task and whatnot. But so those are two things right there that I've experienced so far.
And in your experience, what's been going well? Can you touch on some of the positives that you've
Sure.
gotten
Well,
out of
I think I've sort of made some adjustments to how I teach. Instead of doing a kind of a traditional lecture, on Zoom, what I do is I'll pre-record a lecture and then have them watch it on their own. And that way they can take notes at their own pace. And then I use the live meetings for Q&A and discussion. So that seems to have been working out pretty well so far.
Cool. Kate and Terry, you both have high schoolers at home, you said, and you've both been working more than ever. So that must present some unique challenges. Terry, do you want to go first on that one? Some of the tougher challenges that you've had to face teaching your high schooler at home?
Really like the others, he's pretty independent. I'm very lucky in that regard. Some of his classes have transitioned actually pretty well. One of them, the humanities class that meets every day, that's good. After about 2 weeks of remote learning, they allowed using Google Meet, which they had not wanted to do because there were concerns about students having video. We have also found that high school students who can get creative and in trouble in real life also can get creative in trouble in the remote learning world. And so he's doing all right. Some classes end up really quick, and I haven't actually solved the issue of how do I keep him busy when I'm doing things, because reading a book isn't as exciting.
Kate, do you want to touch on that one too?
So I've actually found my teenager's grades have improved because she doesn't have anything else to do, which has been really interesting. She's been really engaged and enjoying remote learning. I mean, of course, missing her opportunity. She was looking forward to playing lacrosse, and she doesn't have the opportunity to do that, right? And looking forward to, when she was at school, she would visit the math lab and get some tutoring from other students. She also doesn't have that opportunity as well. So she's totally independent. Her grades have improved. She's busy all the time doing work. She doesn't interact. It doesn't bother me having her here in the house at all or impede my work in any way. I just, we're all kind of, keeping me in the building's like caging a lion, so I'm sure for her, it feels the same way. We have enough energy to fuel the city of Manchester.
I believe it. And you also have a high school student. If you knew tomorrow that somebody was going to be put in your situation, what advice would you give them on day one that you've learned over the past couple of weeks?
Ooh, that's a loaded question.
It's sorry to put you on the spot.
Because Well, fortunately, I have a very responsible child who is more like a warden than I am. However, I don't have to go to work until mid-morning, and many days she is done her schooling by the time I am going because their load is lighter for school. And we go through a list. So I would say the task list is great and benefits if they get through their task lists. And I think one of our panel group was talking about all of the things that they can learn to do at home. And my daughter has learned amazing things. She was a baker. She's now a cook. And she has made over 500 masks for the communities. So every day I give her a task, and she, in one day, will make masks for an entire facility, and she feels good about it. So we are setting goals on a daily basis versus a weekly basis or a monthly basis because of her platform in the, our foundation. We were doing that on a monthly basis as a group with the students, but now we're doing it daily. So I would say it's a little bit tedious, but it is for everybody. And by the way, my hats go off to every educator out there. You are my heroes. I hope I answered that question okay.
No, that was great. Thank you very much. Meg, I'd like to come to you if that's okay. You're a homeschool parent, and you did that by choice, I assume?
I did. Yep.
Maybe you could talk about some of the resources that you've utilized over your children's learning career that some other people, students or families that were in the traditional school setting might not know about, that they might be able to utilize that you've utilized.
That's a great point. When I was homeschooling, we did not have the internet, believe it or not. I've been doing it. I did it for a very long time, up until 10 years ago. So we used a lot of textbooks and things, a lot of mail